WBOB.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks.
You're listening to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks, where we're offering insights and solutions for today's seniors so you can age with confidence. And we've got a great show for you today. I'm excited about our guests that are here. But first, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the new year. And 2024 is bringing us new annual gift and estate tax exemptions. So with the arrival of the new year, revisions to those annual gift tax and estate tax exclusions are going to go into effect, as the IRS recently announced. So every calendar year, you can gift up to a certain amount to another individual or individuals tax-free. And these gifts can include cash as well as other types of property. The IRS typically adjusts the gift tax exclusion each year based on inflation, and starting on January 1st, 2024, the annual exclusion on gifts will be $18,000 per recipient. And that's going to be up from $17,000 in 2023. So a married couple filing jointly can double this amount and gift individuals $36,000 apiece in 2024. Now, let's talk a little bit about the federal estate tax exemption. And this, when I'm saying estate tax exemption, this is the amount of money that you can leave someone after you pass so that they do not have to pay federal estate taxes on it. And the federal estate tax exemption is also set to increase in 2024, and it's going to rise to $13.61 million in 2024, and that is up from $12.92 million in 2023. And as you all know, the estate tax exemption is quite high. For those of you who are listening who may be a little bit older, you might remember years ago when the estate tax exemption was $600,000, and then it went up to $1 million. And now, if you can believe it, for next year, it's going to be $13.61 million per person. And for couples, this exemption is going to equal $27.22 million. So, in other words, an individual's estate valued less than $13.61 million in 2024 will not be subject to federal estate taxes. So most people, of course, are not multimillionaires, and today this is only going to affect a small fraction of Americans that are going to need to worry about this. But if you are one of those people, there are ways that you can choose to gift assets to loved ones during your lifetime. And that's one way that you can help cut down on the taxes your estate will have to pay upon your death. So very interesting information for 2024. That estate tax exemption is going up again. Now, it is really important to note that this high lifetime gift and estate tax exclusion is currently on track to decrease drastically at the end of 2025 to about $6 million. So if you're a high net worth individual and you die in 2026, there may be tax implications for your estate if you are in between that number. So just keep in mind that the current tax exemptions that are so high, that law is set to sunset at the end of 2025. So come 2026, that estate tax exemption is going to be lower. Now, getting on to the show, we have Donna Lee is back, who is the program director of the Alzheimer's Association, and she's going to be talking to us about how to navigate large gatherings with a loved one who is battling dementia. And I know this is a really tough situation for everyone in time for the holidays, and she basically is letting us know how to adjust our expectations and be flexible with our loved ones that are experiencing cognitive difficulties. We're also going to be talking about how to continue a meaningful relationship with someone who has Alzheimer's, maybe whether that's looking at pictures, slowing down conversations, and also meeting them in their reality. Donna has some really great tips that you don't want to miss. We are also talking to Ritscher and Gregg Hummer, who are both with Jax Hope. They are back to talk about their personal journey with Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is still a bit of a mystery to everyone, so they are going to be describing their symptoms, their experience with the medical profession, and how their families have reacted to their diagnosis. They also talk about what happens in the brain with Parkinson's and why it's so difficult to get that diagnosis because of the different types of symptoms that people experience. So they are going to be talking to us about Parkinson's and the wonderful work that Jax Hope is doing in Jacksonville. But first, we have a really special guest. It's author Sherrie Barch, and she's the author of a book called Heaven's Bell. And this book is about two middle school friends, one who passes away and the other who lives a full life on earth, and they meet again in heaven. And the book offers great pathways to talk about grief and relationships and other difficult topics that we as adults tend to avoid. So it's a wonderful book and a wonderful talk with Sherrie that I hope that you will enjoy. And be sure to check out her book, Heaven's Bell, on Amazon, Audible, or Kindle, whichever way you would like to consume your books. So thank you so much for joining us here on the Elder Law Hour, and we will be right back. Welcome back to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks, and I'm so happy to be here today with Sherrie Barch. Hi, Sherrie. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Sherrie's written a wonderful book called Heaven's Bell, and it's so touching and such a warm, lovely story, especially coming up with the holiday season approaching us. It can be a really difficult time for people. And what inspired you to, and I know, we've all had losses and loves and loss in our life, but what has inspired the book for you?
I think I've never been good with death and dying. And I'm not sure I've ever met someone who is good at dealing with death and dying. But when the pandemic hit and COVID really took so many lives, it was back in 2020. I had a story that I told to my nieces, and they really responded well to it. And so I had some friends that had heard the story. I had told it. I'm a storyteller, but I wasn't a writer at that point. And they encouraged me to write it down and to publish it because they really thought that it would help so many families and so many people that, weren't able to mourn traditionally. They weren't able to grieve. We couldn't see each other. We couldn't go to church. We couldn't be in one another's living rooms. And so I just decided to go ahead and write it down. And it has done really well. And I have gotten just wonderful feedback. And I just appreciate being here today to talk about it.
Absolutely. Well, the story is really written for kids, right? It's to help children process and understand death and grief. And I think that's a really hard thing for kids to do. Just in my own experience with my children, I have 3 girls. They're all so different and they deal with everything very differently. And it reminded me a little bit of my middle child because she's the type that really avoids emotion. She really does not want to feel anything bad. She, kind of hides away from that. And as a parent, you're really trying, I think so much of their childhood is really just trying to figure out who they are and how you can help them. So I thought the story was really great for that because you really get into how children handle these types of things. So can we talk a little bit about that? Like if you have a death in your family, what are the different ways that you're seeing that kids are kind of dealing with loss?
Yeah, I think to your point and what the main character in the book does, you can see anger, you can see avoidance, you can see some of those traditional places where whether it's about a death or whether it's about conflict, period, there are these different kind of fight, flight, or freeze responses.
Right.
And so in the story, I tried to create entry points for conversations so that if I'm feeling angry, maybe there's a way that I might be able to communicate. I might be able to set my own boundaries and say, I'm not willing to communicate right now. I'll let you know when I'm comfortable. But I think as parents or just support people, whether you're a parent or a grandparent or a teacher or a neighbor, community member, it's really about staying present and making sure that you're creating that safe space. And I think sometimes as adults, we're not actually as good with death as we think we are.
We are not good with it.
And we're setting examples then for our children, even young children, even in preschool and kindergarten, they can sense what the room is happening. They can sense if somebody's upset. Probably now is not a good time to talk about it. What does this look like? And they're experiencing grief right along with you.
Yeah.
But there's something, and we're protecting the children are protecting the adults. And then all of a sudden we go to our corners and we just kind of walk through life like, well, it happened. Let me know if you need anything, but it's uncomfortable. We're going to move forward. And the whole point of the story was to say, hey, here's something that's not threatening. Let's read it and let's talk about it. And people have said why, and the story is about two middle school children. One dies and goes to heaven, and the other one stays on earth. And it's kind of a parallel story that talks about what Cody's doing in heaven while Ashley lives a long life, and then how they meet up again in the end. And it takes the conversation past, let me know if you need anything. And so the story just goes for it. Now, whether you agree with it or you disagree with it, it's not a religious story. It's just a opportunity to be able to kind of open a door or a window to, hey, what are you thinking? Yeah. And it's a common language that it creates. I think the common language, creating a safe space, and being present are great ways that adults can help children in their own grieving process.
Right, because they're going through it too. And so much of what I've been through myself in the past year has been, I'm really, you want to just run away and sort of cry on your own and not really share that part with them. But I have just kind of, if I'm standing in the kitchen and I'm upset, then I have let them be a part of that. And I don't know, no one really gives you, you don't really have a manual on, okay, this is how you're supposed to grieve and this is what it's going to look like. I mean, we hear about the stages of grief and all that, and I'd like to talk about that with you in a minute, but I'm just letting them in on it because I know one day they're going to probably deal with it. I mean, I'm hoping I go before them, please God. And I want them to know that life is just about all of the things. It's about all of the joy, all of the happiness and sadness and grief. You wouldn't be human if you didn't experience all of these emotions. And that's how it's supposed to be. I think so many kids think they're supposed to, quote unquote, be happy all the time. And I'm like, you're just not going to be. Right. And that's okay, Yeah.
And I think there's an opportunity to hold both. I think you can hold the joy of the experiences that you had, your love, the memories, along with the grief. I think we need to realize it's not one or the other. Right. And again, I was at November was the Children's Grief Awareness Month. And so last year I did a talk and went to a panel of grieving children. And you should have seen the adults in the room listen to these grieving children. And it was all the way from, I think, 3rd grade to a senior in high school. I want to say there was 8. And what they said consistently is, it's okay. I mean, just because I lost my dad doesn't mean I'm different. Like, it's okay to talk to me about it. What's most awkward as a kid is when adults avoid the elephant in the room, which is, I'm really sad about the fact that grandma died.
Yeah.
And so it's, and I think adults go first, but I'm not good with death. I'm not good with dying. So my way of going first was writing the story.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I'm incredibly awkward. And nobody feels comfortable going, hey, let's sit down and get cozy and talk about how sad I am that I just lost my dad.
Yeah.
And it's just relying on adults that maybe didn't have the example of their mom getting upset in the kitchen and crying means we're not going to be able to heal together. And the last thing we want is more isolation. So the fact that you cried in your kitchen in front of your kids,
I do it all the time.
It's a gift. They're lucky.
I hope so. I want them to understand that, first of all, that emotions are a part of life and they're not bad. They're indicators of what's going on, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And that's how life is. That's how your body is. That's going to happen. And it's not always going to be positive necessarily, but positive things can come out of that. I think another thing for adults that struck me a little bit when you were saying that was just how bad we are when a child, or anyone for that matter, is experiencing a negative emotion. Well, I call it negative because you don't want to experience it. When someone's sad, for instance, I mean, so many of my friends, they are lovely people. I mean, wonderful, supportive, as great as they can be. They have no idea what to say to me. Like, absolutely they just freeze, they clam up, they don't say anything. And it does kind of, the bad side of that is I don't really have that outlet to talk to them about that. And I can't share that part of my life, I guess, with them, because most of them haven't been through losing a parent yet. And I understand. I get it. Like, I didn't get it either, like, you just don't know. And my husband's the same way. Like, he still has both of his parents, and he's been as incredibly supportive and as wonderful as he can be. But at the end of the day, he's like, I just don't know what you're going through,
Let me flip the interview for just a second. If you were to say, here's what I need, here's what you don't have to worry about, what would you say?
I mean, usually it's a hug. It's usually just space. I mean, just like you were saying, I mean, it's usually just let me just have this moment, like have this time to say what I need to say or feel, what I need to feel. And then it will pass. And then I will be okay. I'm not going to break. I'm not going to fall apart, but I am going to go through this. So, and he's been incredible at that. He's a quick study. So he's learned to be able to give me that. And the same with the kids. It's like, I don't want to create, I guess, I don't want to bring things up that are going to make them upset. You know what I mean? But I know that they have to deal with things as well. But I mean, to be honest, losing a grandparent is not nearly as traumatic as losing a parent. So, I mean, it's not like they've lost one of us, and that would be certainly a much more traumatic and difficult event for them. But I mean, it was, it is hard. It's just hard to know what to say for someone you're supporting. And because the person that's going through the grief, you don't know what to expect. You really don't. And they say there are these stages of grief, right? So can we talk about that a little bit? Because I feel like some of those stages have repeated themselves on me.
And again, for me, the stages, there's so many books that are written by really smart people that can walk through the different stages. And I looked at a lot of those as I was thinking about this story. And part of it for me is I'm not trying to be that psychiatrist or that social worker. What I'm trying to do is create less loneliness in the grieving process while you go through the stages.
And I think I'm so grateful for that, because there's such a need for that. I was just saying there's a huge need for that.
The isolation is there. And I think the story is as an entry point. But I also think through the story, we start to understand that we don't have to show up with all the answers. It's a little narcissistic if you think about it. I'm going to come in and I'm going to say something like, well, you just need to get out of the house. It's been fill in the blank, 6 months, 1 year. Well, hang on. What we need to do as people that are supporting grief is be there. I had a friend who lost her mom. It's her first birthday. I sent her a card that said, I know today really sucks for you. I don't know what else. That's it. There's nothing we're going to do to make it better. But not being present and acknowledging that it's the first birthday since, or the second, or the third. I've had feedback from this set, because there's a book and a journal, that it is ideal. I've had people read it on the 1 year anniversary and of the death, and it gives them another place to enter their grieving, because you're isolated. You're doing your own grief. You're going through your own stages. Yes. This is how we do it. This is where I keep getting stuck. I keep remembering this. She's never going to be back. And it's where you start to bring in the story, you start to bring in some of the different prompts. And the feedback that I received was, I read it on the 1 year anniversary of my mother's death. And what it did is create different pathways for me to not only find some joy in the memories and thoughts that I hadn't thought of in a year because I've been too busy grieving, but it also created other pathways for me to grieve.
Yes.
So it became lighter, even though the grief didn't go away. It was like we added other ingredients.
Yes. And let's talk about the journal for a minute, because I am a big believer in journaling. I try to journal every day, and it's so helpful. And, when you go back a couple of years and just see all of the things that you're dealing with, you're creating this wonderful little history of yourself. But regardless of that, I love the prompts in this. One of the things is it starts out with picturing your loved one and, what are they wearing? What was their favorite shirt? And, and it's so funny because all of those things, like my sister and I talk about so much, like,
Right.
oh, we can't get rid of this shirt yet because she loved this shirt. It's all of those little personal things that you kind of end up, really treasuring after the person's gone, because you just have such a good memory associated with that item. But I love the prompts in it because it does kind of help you think of it in a different way. And just, it's not like anything I've seen, and I love how unique that
Thank you.
perspective.
They were written for, again, it's not a formal journal, right? Like a reflection point. Who famous do you think that they're meeting in heaven? Or what kind of music do you think they're listening to?
I love those questions.
I asked one person, what do you think your mom would say to you from heaven right now? And she said, you're wearing that again? So I mean, it was kind of funny because that's not where you go. You're kind of thinking, so all the prompts are family prompts. A 5-year-old can answer it. A 95-year-old can answer it. The other thing I've seen is there's a lot of room for pictures. So you can put stickers and draw on one page of the prompt. And then the other page has a lot of lines. Multiple family members have filled it out. What's the recipe you remember most from mom? And somebody writes down meatballs and I have that recipe. Somebody puts down, chocolate pudding pie and remember that. So all of a sudden you've got these microcosms of reflection and memories that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
Now I get to explore a memory from a different vantage point that I didn't remember or know. And now we're keeping that loved one's memory alive, and it takes us down a different path. And when I think about the holidays and I think about the opportunity to be around one another, we can avoid it, or we can just hold still and create a safe space. Some will want to engage more than others. Some still aren't ready. That's okay too.
Right.
But others might need that opportunity to not be alone, or feel safe to say, I'm still sad.
Yeah.
That's okay. And I'm not talking about 12-year-olds. I'm actually talking about us, right?
I think we're the worst ones. The kids seem to be way more adjusted than we are. But yeah, with the holidays, it's such a wonderful time. But if you're experiencing grief, it's such a hard time. So one of the questions that's come up for us as a family is whether or not to keep our same family traditions now that the main person, our mother, isn't with us. So she really was the centerpiece of of everything that we did. I think it would be a great opportunity for us maybe to go through the journal and kind of talk about things, because I would love to hear some of my nieces, what their thoughts are as well. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that this Christmas.
Yes. And the journal actually came from when people were done reading the story, they would immediately start talking about their loved ones that are having their bell rung in heaven.
Right.
And I thought, wow. So in the back of Heaven's Bell, I put some pages in there for people to jot down their thoughts and their memories so they can keep it. But then it kept coming. I had a television reporter interviewing me and started talking about her grandfather that she'd never met. But after reading Heaven's Bell, what she's excited about is she's going to be able to meet him someday in heaven, even though on earth, all she knows about him is through her father. And her father only talks about his father when they're making meatballs at the holidays. And so she said, my father thinks I really like to make meatballs. I really don't. But what I like to hear about is my grandfather that I've never met. And he only talks about it when we make meatballs. So I decided to ask kind of weird questions like, what's your favorite recipe? What was their favorite restaurant? What did they order from the menu at their favorite restaurant? I mean, anything we can do to be able to create that robust conversation is what the art of storytelling and conversation is all about. So I put the journal together the next year, and I did it wrong. I uploaded it into Amazon. Amazon spit it back out at me and told me I was low content or something. So I reloaded it. And it dropped on Father's Day. And I had just lost my father. And I had dedicated a journal to my father and my father-in-law. And it dropped on Father's Day. So, of course, for me, that is them. They're both snickering and laughing in heaven right now, going, let's mess with her. And then let's drop it on Father's Day, just to let her know that we're winking at her. So, wow. Again, some of it is about imagination. Some of it is about a choice. We have a choice to be able to hold grief and joy together. And it's okay if one gets in front of the other. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to cry. Can we just normalize death? Because it's going to happen to all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what a gift. I love the book and I love the journal. And I think it's going to be something very helpful for me personally and in my family. And I would highly recommend it to everyone listening who's maybe in one of the stages of grief, or maybe you're a little bit beyond. Maybe you've lost someone a while ago, but maybe you would like to remember certain things about them. And that's where the journal is such a wonderful tool too. And I know that it's sort of written for kids, but yeah, I love it for myself. So
the feedback has been, I understand that the age group is kids, but really it's family.
Yes.
And it's not excluding the children, but it's also trying to give some courage to the adults to go first.
Which is much, much needed. Well, Sherrie, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. If someone wants to find out more about you, the book is on Amazon, right?
Correct.
It's called Heaven's Bell, and it's on Amazon and also Audible and Kindle, and you can get it in all of the ways, right?
Yes.
And then if someone wants to find out more about you, where should they head to?
They can head to my website, which is sherriebarch.com. It's SHERRIE, B as in boy, ARCH.com.
Perfect. And we will also put a link to Sherrie's website on our website, elderlawhour.com. And thank you so much for listening. This is Emily Hicks, and we will be right back.
Are you ready to invest in real estate without the headaches? Look no further than investjacksonville.com, your trusted partner in turnkey real estate investments. With over 18 years of experience, our process has been fine-tuned. And now we're opening up our team to other people just like you. At investjacksonville.com, we're selective about who we work with because we believe in delivering the best. Our dedicated acquisition team scours the market to find the finest properties, while our skilled construction and maintenance team ensures every detail is taken care of. From new roofs to granite countertops, HVAC systems to plumbing and electrical, we leave no stone unturned to make sure there's no surprises. We're in this together with our investors for the long haul. With our first-year guarantee, we put our money where our mouth is. We guarantee your rental rate for the first year, giving you time to build reserves and budget for any surprises that may come your way later. We believe in our construction team and our tenant placement team, which is why we offer this unbelievable guarantee. We're committed to your success and peace of mind. We're passionate about making it simple and easy and a no-brainer for others to get started investing, because we know what real estate can do for people to reach financial freedom. So if you're ready to invest with confidence, contact Invest Jacksonville today at 904-536-3000 or visit our website at investjacksonville.com. Let us show you why there's nobody quite like us. investjacksonville.com, your authentic partner in hassle-free real estate investing. Contact us now.
Welcome back to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks, and I am here with Donna Lee today, and she is the local program director for the Alzheimer's Association here in the Jacksonville area. And Donna, I'm so pleased that you're here today. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
I want to talk about family gatherings with when you have a loved one that has a cognitive disease such as Alzheimer's or any of the types of dementia. How do you navigate that situation? Because I'll tell you just briefly, a couple of Thanksgivings ago, we decided to go to a restaurant for Thanksgiving. We had just decided we were not cooking that year. We're all going to go to a restaurant. And it was the worst decision that we ever made. Not only it was super crowded. I think it was right after COVID had kind of died down. Mm-hmm. And we brought my mom, who had been diagnosed with Parkinson's, already had a hard time, but there were other extenuating circumstances, which is why we did it. It was horrible. And we all deeply regretted it. It was a terrible situation for her, and she wandered off a lot. She just needed to get out of there. I mean, it was really, really bad. And we thought to ourselves, why in the world did we do that? How do you navigate family gatherings and things like that?
So to be just very, very blunt and honest about it, people need realistic expectations. Most of the time, families walk into holidays, family gatherings. In general, you walk in with just unrealistic expectations. Like, for instance, you have the seasonal family photo shoot. Everybody's dressed up. It's fall. Everybody's dressed up in their plaid jackets and their boots, and you've got kids and the dog and all that. And mom kind of walks away after spending a week picking out and ordering all these beautiful matching outfits and making sure everybody's hair is combed and nobody has got a stain on it before they leave the house, and, all that kind of stuff. But then you've taken these children and maybe the dog and, bless their little hearts, and a husband that just kind of doesn't have the same investment that you do in this, and you expect them all to behave in a strange place doing something they're not normally doing. Yeah, you're kind of wrong with your expectations. That's your fault for having unrealistic expectations. Right. Apply the same rules to the holidays. For you to take a person that has cognitive deficiencies, they're already living in their own space that is frustrating, and they're angry about it. They have an awareness that something is wrong, and they don't have control over that. And this is probably a person that was very much large and in charge in their life. Yes. They've built a life, and all of a sudden they find themselves at the mercy of somebody else, a caregiver. Maybe they're in some sort of, assisted living facility, a memory care facility, something like that. And you as a family want to take them out, put them in a public setting, or take them to a house that maybe they've been in 100 times over the years, but they don't recognize it right now. Right. Yeah. So, and you expect them to not want to like run and flee. Yeah. That's kind of on the family. Yeah. It was really on us. Yeah. It was a terrible idea. And it was one of those things that we just all deeply regretted the minute it was happening. So what should we do instead? So instead, if the person has the cognitive ability to actually say, okay, instead of asking them, what do you want to do? Give two options. Do you want to go out to a restaurant? Are they still comfortable doing that? Do they understand what that means? Manage their expectations. If we go to this restaurant, it's probably going to be a lot of people. It's going to be something that maybe you're not used to anymore. Have the conversation. Just kind of manage those expectations. If they're at the point where maybe they can't remember that conversation from 2 days ago or whatever, and you're not sure about that, if you want to bring them into like a familiar house, something like that, just don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Don't be agitated if after 15 minutes that they want to go back. Or they want to go to or have their surroundings to be normal again. If their house is where the gatherings normally happen, and you know that there is this cognitive decline and cognitive disconnect that's happening due to dementia or Alzheimer's, rethink the family plan. Say, listen, why do we want to add 15 people to this household where my loved one is already struggling to be in every day because nothing makes sense to them? Yeah. Do we really want to do that? Maybe even if fortunately we live in Florida, so you can have some really great weather on Thanksgiving, really great weather. Instead of maybe doing it inside the house, set up something outside in the yard, an outside dinner, an outside gathering. Bring the chairs and sit outside. Don't take everything into the house, which gives them a place to retreat and flee to if they do get overwhelmed. What a good point. If you can just de-escalate and just be able to in the moment de-escalate. When you see them getting agitated, when you see that mood shifting, when you see them trying to retreat or flee from that gathering, be able to adjust and have very, very pointed conversations with the family about, listen, it's about them. Yes. It's not about us. Right. It's about them. Yeah, we can adapt, but they can't. Yeah. So I think it's more about setting the foundation, putting the footers and the pillars in place to make sure that you can build a great family holiday season, a great event for this person. But it's all about you adapting and building around them and not having them fold into what you want to do. And just
or maybe what you've always done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be what you've always done.
That's right.
I mean, we get really caught up in our traditions.
Yes,
we do. We certainly do. But I love the idea of having somewhere for them to retreat. I think, that's such a good point. That's such a good plan. I also want that for myself during holidays.
But I'm thinking to your plan.
Wait a minute. That sounds really good. I think we all get overwhelmed. I couldn't imagine, because I get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
We're cooking. You're cooking for 20 people or whatever it is, and it's overwhelming. You have a house full, and it's a lot to deal with. And I can see how having somewhere to maybe just get a little solitude is a good idea for all of us, but
Absolutely.
Certainly for them. But with the communication barrier, let's talk a little bit about that, because we don't, it's very hard, the change in personality that can happen, because like you were saying, this person may have been somebody who was a world beater, who was on top of their game, who was very successful professionally or personally as a family man or family woman. And it's hard as the children or the loved ones to adjust to that change in personality. So what are some tips for people that are going through this on the other side? How can you continue to have that relationship with them, I guess, in a meaningful way?
So I would say slow down. Everything is about slowing down.
Okay.
So for instance, we teach law enforcement and public safety officials. When you have someone that is of or above a certain age, they look like the appropriate age that maybe a dementia or Alzheimer's conversation would be appropriate. They seem to be out of sorts. They seem to be not living in the moment. Slow down how you talk to them.
Okay.
They cannot handle probably more than one thought at the time. For instance, you don't want to say, what do you want to do today? Like, for instance, with my dad, while right now, knock on wood, we don't need this type of conversation. But if we ever get there, I know, don't ask him, what do you want to do today? That's the whole world wide open.
Oh, so many choices.
I don't even want to make that decision some days.
I don't either, Donna.
However, what you can do is say, hey, here is our first two options. Give them two choices. Do you want to go with me to the grocery store, or do you want to stay here? Remember that it's the same way that you would deal with a small child.
Right.
You want to limit the options. You want to ask one question at the time. A law enforcement officer may ask, hey, what's your name? Where's your address? Where are you going? Something like that. It's too much information at one time. Ask a question. Hey, what are you thinking right now? What do you think about this? What is your opinion of this? Can you tell me what your name is? Don't ask, do you remember, or do you want to go do this? Say this or this.
Okay.
Photographs are such a great way to keep a conversation going. That's not intrusive. It's not overwhelming, because photographs can really stimulate a meaning and bring someone to that time. If you've got maybe like smaller children or whatever ahead of the family gathering, maybe let them grab a photo album and climb up into grandma or just grandma's lap, or sit at their feet and say, hey, tell me about this. Teach the little people how to engage. You yourself, find a favorite photograph that just really captures a pleasant memory or whatever. And that person, you may have that conversation 15 times in the day. Let it be.
Okay.
Just let it be. But photographs or just special items in the house. Generations ago, people kept everything. Every homemade Christmas ornament that was made in second grade, and every drawing. Oh,
yes. My mother kept everything.
See?
Anything we ever did, or that the grandkids ever did, it was like a painting on a piece of wax paper. She kept it.
So find those things. See if you can find those kind of things. If like for me, I hope that my adult son will give my granddaughters the stuff that I've kept, because I keep it all in a box and all that. I'm hoping that if I ever develop Alzheimer's and dementia, that my grandbabies can get that box and they'll be my memory for me.
Yeah.
That we'll be able to just talk through some of that. It may or may not come back to me in that moment, but it's a pleasant, engaging conversation.
And it's true that you are not, I mean, your point with communicating with them is to not agitate and to not, put them on the defensive, right? If they're stuck maybe from a childhood memory or from, you really don't know where they are in their mind, right? So it's important to just kind of roll with that.
Absolutely. Don't argue. Don't try to bring them to your reality. Don't use the words, well, you remember I told you or whatever. That's not good. Sticky notes are your friends in the house. Sticky notes are your friends.
Okay.
I was actually sharing recently with a group of seniors that I have a family that I'm aware of. They color code everything. For instance, they went and bought red dots, like you would put like price tag stickers at a yard sale.
Yeah.
So they put everything that goes in the kitchen, they put a red dot on it.
Oh.
So then
I need that for my children.
I know. So then the person, the aging person that is living with Alzheimer's, they know if it's red, and on the kitchen door it's this beautiful glass kitchen door, and they have this big ugly red dot that they put. I mean, big dot on there. But that's how that person, how he knows this red thing, this cup, it's got a red dot on it. Where's the red dot in the house? It goes in the kitchen.
Okay. So they don't have to make any decisions in that.
Exactly.
So it just keeps it low stress. We know where to go. As far as making decisions, when the changing of the guard kind of happens, when you're used to being the child, okay, and let's say in a scenario where it's your parent, how do you navigate that when you have a parent that's dealing with a cognitive disability?
So I would say the first thing is look at it from a purely safety standpoint. Are things happening or not happening that create an unsafe environment? Things like, have you noticed, for instance, maybe this person, us as women, we like candles typically. Are you noticing any kind of careless patterns? Not a one-time thing, a pattern. Are you seeing evidence where maybe matches are being left unattended and there's grandkids coming over, a lighter or some sort of barbecue lighter thing, whatever. Right. Are those things being left unattended, not realizing the next logical step is to put that away because it's unsafe to leave it out?
Yeah.
Are you seeing the oven being left on? Are you seeing doors being left unlocked at night? Are you seeing keys not being put in the right places? Are they leaving the house without having their ID and their wallet and things like that with them? When you start noticing these kind of things, and you can't notice it one time and take it all the way to, oh my goodness, this person now can't take care of themselves.
Yeah.
That's not the thing. But just when you start noticing a collection of things that would be unsafe, inappropriate dress and footwear to go out.
Okay.
Like wearing a heavy winter coat when they're going out in July in Florida.
Yeah.
Or wearing flip-flops when it's 40 degrees outside. Something like that. And it doesn't have to be dramatic, but just when you start seeing unsafe patterns, that's when you want to start having a conversation.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Donna. We're out of time for now, but if someone needs to get in touch with you guys, what's that? You guys have a great hotline that you can call any time of day, right?
We do. It's open 24/7, 365 a year, and you would dial 1-800-272-3900.
And you've been listening to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks. Thank you so much, Donna, for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
This is Vicki Oakes, your St. Johns County Supervisor of Elections. The 2024 elections are coming. They will be here soon. Are you election ready? If not, and you need to be, you can visit our website at votesjc.gov. That's votesjc.gov, or contact our office at 904-823-2238. Make sure you are election ready.
Welcome back to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks, and I am here with Gregg Hummer and Greg Ritscher from Jax Hope, which is an organization to support people with Parkinson's disease. Greg, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
So you guys, you both have been diagnosed with Parkinson's, correct? For different lengths of time, you've been dealing with the disease, and there's a lot of questions and a lot of mystery about Parkinson's. Can you maybe, Greg Ritscher, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with your getting a diagnosis and just how that's impacted your life.
Sure. Thank you for having us. I self-diagnosed myself. I started with a small tremor in my pinky finger. When I went to my PCP, he diagnosed it as benign essential tremor. And I bought that story. Sounded logical to me. The next year I went back. My hand was shaking now, not just my pinky finger. And he said, oh, because you had such an athletic life, you probably had some sports injuries. That's probably what's causing it to grow. I bought that.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah. Then in the third year, now I started getting a tremor in my hand and my arm. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, got married at a destination wedding in Colorado. And she married an Australian. And they drive on the other side of the road and have no experience in driving in snow. So I rented a bunch of limos to take us from where we were staying to the chapel and back, because I figured killing a bunch of Australians on my daughter's wedding day would be sort of a bummer. So we get in the car to go over, because I'm the father of the bride. And all the bridesmaids are like, oh, the fragrance of these flowers is spectacular. And I thought to myself, that's funny. I can't smell anything. But I didn't want to ruin the gist of the day, so I just didn't simply say anything. And I thought maybe if you buy the flowers, you can't smell them. But after the wedding and the reception, I was showering, and I asked my wife, do you have a shampoo that you could not miss the odor of? It'd be distinct. And she said, sure. And I lathered up, and I said, sweetheart, I can't smell a thing. So we got out the iPad and looked up tremor and no smell. One word popped up, starts with a P.
Wow.
Ends with an Arkansans. And so took me 3 months to get in to see a movement specialist, because they're hard to find even in a town the size of Denver. And from there, I was diagnosed. I had mentioned to you that my doctor's bedside manner was left a little bit to desire. He said, you got Parkinson's and you got it bad. My wife burst into tears. That didn't help. And so I have been battling the disease for about 12 and a half years now.
Wow. Yeah, I have a similar situation when my mother was diagnosed, and her neurologist, it was quite disappointing as far as any kind of bedside manner just really was not there. It didn't happen. It was incredibly stressful for her and for us to kind of know what to expect. So I know that, the medical community, and for those of you who are in the medical community, you'll just have to forgive me for feeling this way, but I'm still a little raw about it. They let us down with this disease. They really let us down. And I don't know, we just don't seem to have the research. We don't seem to have the funding. Why is that? Why is it so difficult when you're diagnosed with Parkinson's to get more support? What do you think the problems are with that?
I believe that the problem is that the doctors love to be right.
Yeah.
Seriously. They love to be, oh, I'm the doctor and I told you what to do and it was correct. I was misdiagnosed for 3 years, then finally diagnosed myself. Otherwise, I'd still probably just think, oh, this must just be what happens to people with benign essential tremor, which is a neurological disorder where you simply tremor. You have no other symptoms.
Right. Gregg Hummer, what do you think?
It's a mystery. People don't know what it is. They don't know where you get it. They don't know how you get it, and they don't know how to get rid of it. So it's It's something they just don't know. And when
And
I was
it
diagnosed,
affects everybody differently too.
it
It's not
affects
like
everything different.
it's not like, oh,
Greg
you
had
have
the tremor
cancer.
first. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Greg had the tremor first, and I probably had the tremor last in my symptoms. When I was diagnosed, we lived on the Big Island of Hawaii and living in paradise. And I worked for a local newspaper in Hilo on the Big Island. And I just was starting to get depressed all the time. And here you are living in paradise, and I'm depressed. The wife couldn't understand it, but we moved on. Then I started noticing my wife. She's 5 foot tall, and I'm 6'3". And when we walk every day, I'd always had to slow down so she'd keep up. But I noticed that she was keeping up with me all the time. And over the next couple of months, I was trying to keep up to her. I was slowing down. And then during the day, I'd get tired. I'd have to take naps. And luckily, I was in outside sales, so I could make a sales call and then go somewhere and go to a park and take a nap. And the naps were getting longer and longer. So I thought maybe I just need to change jobs. Well, I changed jobs, and I went to work for a multi-billion-dollar company. I had a great salary. I had a car. I had a whole territory of the Big Island. I was a merchandiser, merchandising product. And I had to go to Virginia for training, and I just couldn't take the flight. I was tired, sleepy all the time. And finally, I decided to go to the doctor. And they ran all kinds of tests, heart tests, lung tests, brain tests, and everything came out fine. But the doctor, I was lucky. I had a doctor with good bedside manner. He took an interest in me. And then I started noticing my arm was starting to move.
Oh.
And he asked me to stand in his office, raise my arms, and close my eyes. And he tapped me on the shoulder, and I fell over. And he had this Craftsman toolbox that he used for his medical supplies. I fell over the toolbox. And he kind of scratched his head. He was 70 years old. He scratched his head and he said, "Anybody in your family have Parkinson's?" And I didn't know anything about Parkinson's. I said, "No." He said, "I think you had Parkinson's."
Yeah.
So one thing led to another. I had to quit my job early. But he was a good doctor, but he took lousy notes. So they rejected my short-term disability. I had to fight that.
Oh, goodness.
I finally got that appealed. And then I applied for Social Security disability. They denied that. And I had to fight that. And I found out that they denied just about everybody their first time around. But I had to go through that. But, it's just a mystery. And people don't know what it is, so they don't talk about it. And we're kind of pushed to the side.
Yeah. Well, what exactly does happen in the brain? I mean, can you speak to that a little bit? Like what happens to create Parkinson's?
There is a part of your middle brain that is called the substantia nigra that people with Parkinson's get a protein called alpha-synuclein that misfolds. So it would be like living in a house, having a trash can, but never taking the trash out of the house. Eventually, you'd run out of house. And that's exactly what happens to people with Parkinson's. So one of the things that happens is that when enough cells die in your substantia nigra, that is the only part of your body that can create dopamine. You cannot ingest dopamine. It won't go through the blood-brain barrier in your brain. So people with Parkinson's don't have enough dopamine, which is the fluid that jumps across the synaptic gap. And so when you say, hold your hand out perfectly steady to the left, hundreds of thousands of nerves are firing in perfect sequence. A nerve is telling B nerve to fire. B is telling C. C is telling D. With Parkinson's, A tells B to fire. B doesn't think there's enough dopamine, so I don't think you mean it. But C decides to fire, but D knows for sure there's not enough dopamine. E he's out to lunch. He's doing something else. So your muscles start to quiver. That's what creates the tremor. Okay. That is the most common thing found and symptom for Parkinson's. I try to describe it to people as there is no map for Parkinson's. Everybody's is different. So in order to get somewhere, if we don't have a map, then we better know how to use a compass. And to use a compass, we need to know which way is north, south, east, and west. And I attribute that in Parkinson's to north, true north, intellectually understanding what Parkinson's is and how it works. East is exercise, the great elixir for Parkinson's.
Okay.
South is spiritual. I think it's important for people to associate or at least feel comfortable with their spirituality, that there's a reason that this is happening. No one is picking on you, no higher form of life. You just have Parkinson's, so now you got to learn to live with it.
Right.
And finally, West is, in my opinion, all about self-efficacy. Nike says it best, just do it. You have got to get off your fanny and find a support group and get active and get involved in exercise, boxing, yoga, Tai Chi, hula hooping, whatever floats your boat, you got to get involved in it and push yourself to do it.
Yeah, community is so important just to us as human beings. I mean, we are really wired to be part of a tribe, right? And so I'm so grateful for what you guys are doing and so happy that you've come together to support organizations that really help those that are diagnosed with Parkinson's get out in the community and find things to do. I love the boxing, Gregg, because I mean, you can get your exercise and get your aggression out at the same time. That's awesome. So for someone who has gotten a diagnosis or has a loved one who has been diagnosed, where can they reach you guys at Jax Hope?
They can go to our website, jaxhope.org, or they can call us at 904-801-5535. And on the website is all different kinds of resources, valuable information for people in the Jacksonville, Southern Georgia, on the Gulf Coast, find anything about where support groups are, where they're meeting, who to contact, all kinds of information on there. So just go there, call the number. If someone doesn't answer, someone will call you right back. If you just want to talk to somebody with Parkinson's and just kind of relate to them, we're here for you.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I think this is truly helpful for our listeners in the community. And you have been listening to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks. We are going to link jaxhope.org into our website at elderlawhour.com if you want to head on over to there and get some more information about this episode. Thank you so much, and we'll be right back.
Are you approaching retirement or entering a new chapter of life? Now is the time to consider critical decisions that impact your future and the well-being of your loved ones. As you navigate this transition, ensure you've secured your legacy through proper estate planning. Don't fall into the common misconception that you and your spouse can make decisions for each other in times of legal incapacity without a plan in place. Without proper estate planning, you risk a probate judge making decisions for you, which can be costly and cumbersome for your spouse. Protect your assets and ensure they align with your unique circumstances and objectives. Avoid the default state laws that may not reflect your wishes and could lead to unintended consequences, such as disinheriting your spouse or forcing them to litigate your estate. You also may be considering the possibility of a new relationship after the loss of a spouse. It's essential to enter these relationships with clarity, safeguarding your assets and preserving existing family ties. A premarital agreement becomes crucial in these situations, providing legal protection and clarity. When it comes to your children, thoughtful estate planning is key. Protect their inheritance from squandering, divorces, lawsuits, and bankruptcies. Your hard-earned wealth should be a source of security, not vulnerability. Additionally, plan for long-term care, a significant consideration as you enter retirement. Secure a long-term care insurance policy while you still qualify, and explore alternatives that can convert into life insurance if not needed. Statistics show a 70% likelihood of requiring long-term care after the age of 65, making proactive planning essential. Our team can guide you through this process, helping you replace impersonal state-written plans with a tailored approach that safeguards your assets and family. Don't overlook estate planning as you approach retirement. Book a call with us today to secure your future with confidence. Visit emilyhickslaw.com and book a call today. We'd love to help.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Elder Law Hour. If you'd like to connect with us or find out more about today's show, or you can also download our guide to how to choose a will or a trust, please go to our website, elderlawhour.com. Thank you so much again for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks. Join us this and every Saturday for the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks.